Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better lives. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter.
What's up, dude?
Dude, I usually say what's up. You stole my line. What's up?
That's right. Because I was jumping ahead of schedule here, man.
We're doing it.
Listen, today's topic, it's pretty cool because we're talking about community. And one of the things that I think that a lot of people are missing in their life is community, because especially with entrepreneurial business owners, we tend to look from the perspective of doing it by ourselves, making it by ourselves, that kind of stuff, right? Especially entrepreneurs. Here is my thing. We interviewed Jason Medley here from CG Collective. And one of the things that he talked about is how he was able to build this community. And I want you guys to look at it from the perspective of not only how do you become part of the amazing community, collective, and this mastermind, but how you can maybe incorporate it into your own life to create your own community with your own life, to thrive in your own life, whether you're in Life on Air or whatever it might be, because I think that is a missing aspect for all of us. And I always say that, our life is a team sport, not a me sport. And I think this is a really good example of how to actually go about doing that.
Yeah, it's an awesome episode. Jason's an awesome guy. Let's jump in right now to our interview with him. Here it is, Jason Medley from Collective Genius. Jason Medley, what's up, man? Welcome to Life Inner Show. Great to see you again.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. We were just talking about how it's been 6 or 7 years since we've crossed paths, and
yes,
I'm excited to be on board with you guys today. Hoping we can bring some fire to your listeners and have a little fun in the process, right?
Dude, I love it. Well, I'll tell you one of the things. So when I first met you, I remember I'd taken my turn as a titanium student in Life and Air, and you're like, dude, that sounds like me, because what I had just got done sharing was like, I had all these different business ideas on my hands are in all these different fires. None of them is converting the way I wanted to. And I remember you said something, you're like, it wasn't until I really started to focus and really focus on this one thing that I really started to, my results started to just explode. And you were talking about specifically your group, Collective Genius. And so tell everybody what that is and how you actually got into, like, how did you even start this? Because this is something that like you mentioned, you guys, you've been around for how many years now?
12 years.
12 years. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. Like, so that's something special.
Yeah, no, it's, I would love to tell you that I had this big calculated plan and it all happened on purpose and that, I had it all figured out. But the reality of it is, the truth of it is that would not be true. So when, I was part of the downturn, the crash back in 2008, 2009, really trying to figure out what was next for me. How do I take the skill set I had developed as a mortgage professional and leverage it moving forward, right? So I started a boutique funding company where we were doing transactional funding or dough for a day. It's got a bunch of nicknames, but we were just providing money to investors for one day. They were buying a house for $250 in the morning, selling it that afternoon for $310. They needed the $250 to close, and we would just drop it in. And so during that business, which kind of got me back on my feet after the crash, I was in another organization. It wasn't real estate specific. It was really just kind of driven around marketing in general, regardless of what your industry was. I was sitting there, and a friend of mine kind of said, you're positioned to do something like this in the real estate investing niche. You've got the assets to do it. I don't mean physical assets, but I had a list I had built when I was building the transactional funding company. I had a pretty good following, decent, good reputation, blah, blah, blah. And so, I got up the courage, and I really wasn't doing live events or anything like that. And, mustered up an event with, I don't know, there might've been 9 of us in there or so the first go around. And I took, basically the way I did it is I took my top borrowers from my funding company and, kind of said, hey, I'm, getting ready to build something driven or foundationally secured in the mastermind principle, which Napoleon Hill talks about as the single greatest common denominator for success that titans of industry shared when he interviewed hundreds of them over the course of many, many years. And I want to bring the top investors across the country together. I want you guys to go through a process where we give you a board of directors, something that most small business owners don't have. and you're going to share the system, strategies, and resources that you're using to drive your business, scale your business, grow your business. And then in addition to sharing that, you're going to share what your struggles are. You're going to have to be vulnerable and really talk through what it is you are struggling with, what it is you are looking to accomplish, what are some of your goals or big projects you're working on or initiatives. And then we're going to come together, right? All of the other people in that room are going to come together and empower you and help you get to that next level. Because typically when we break down the struggles that you're having, people in the room are masterful at those things that you're asking for help with. And so really the ultimate goal, I don't know about you guys, but as someone, as a visionary, my biggest struggle on a daily basis is waking up with a vision for tomorrow, a better tomorrow, and then waking up with the reality of today. And when I look at that distance between my today and what I can see and visualize and make happen in the future, it always feels like it's just going to take too long. And so what we do is we come together to compress the time frame it takes for people to achieve the success that they're after. And so that's kind of how it started. Then it's developed into so much more than just a sharing of information. There are literally billions of dollars of deal flow that take place between our members, right? They're buying houses, selling houses, lending money, borrowing money, doing syndications together between members. And so it's kind of become this deal factory as well, in addition to the sharing of information and systems and processes. And that's where it's at today. The reality of it is that I started it as kind of a side project. And then once I got started with it, I realized how passionate I was about it, because it revealed something to me that at the time I wasn't necessarily aware of, that I have I think God's given us all a set of gifts. And it wasn't until I started the Collective Genius that I realized that one of mine was connection. I can see two people standing, talking to each other, just about ready to go their separate ways, thinking, oh, there's nothing here. And I can say, wait, right? You guys need to be doing this and this together, right? Like, because their conversation was 5 minutes. It didn't get to the depth of what I know about them. And my brain just starts processing connection and connecting human beings to shorten the time it takes for them to achieve what they're trying to achieve. And so that's really how it started. I'd love to tell you I had this glamorous idea of setting out with intention of building this big mastermind and all that stuff. But in reality, it started kind of as a side project. And then it was kind of shown to me like that I have fortune of one of my gifts from God is connecting people.
So I heard a couple things and I'm curious. So I heard number one, you approached people in your industry that you already had relationships with, and you knew they were successful because they're borrowing money from you. And so they're doing deals. And when you did this, was your intent like, hey, if I can get these guys around each other, maybe they'll become better. Maybe they'll borrow more money from me and they'll do more deals and it'll benefit me as well? Or was it kind of just like, hey, let's just all see what happens. Let's get together and we're all in the same industry. Let's see if we can help each other and develop best practices and industry standards and things like that. Did you have a motivation?
It was more the latter of like, okay, hey, let's just get everybody together. And I mean, at the end of the day, human beings are, very few don't fall under this category. But at the end of the day, we're all starving to be around people that are wired like we are.
Yeah.
And so initially it was just, let's get a bunch of smart people together and see what happens. And then through the course of doing that, then you begin to realize that, oh, this could potentially serve me at a different level. But again, I didn't necessarily think that up front as much as it was, let's just get some people. The reality of it is, one of the reasons I had started CG is because my lending business was undergoing some regulatory constraints. You're an old short sale guy. Isn't that right? Is that right?
No, Jason? I was a flipper. Yeah.
Okay.
Sean did the short sale stuff.
So there was a time when lenders would say, hey, we'll sell you this short sale and we're going to sell it to you at a discount. But you can't resell it for 30 days. And there were deed restrictions on they were putting deed restrictions on the sale. And so one of my things was like, I got to put my foot on the gas of this, because that business was slowly starting to compress. So it was really just more so about, let's just get a bunch of smart people together and see what happens. And it didn't necessarily occur to me. I didn't know the deal flow part of it would materialize the way that it did or the way that it has.
Yeah. Well, dude, I find it fascinating because I think, especially whether you're a real estate investor, entrepreneur, or small business owner, you kind of tend to feel like you're alone and you don't have colleagues and people on the same playing field as you that you can bounce ideas. I mean, you have people maybe in your life that want to see you succeed, but they're not necessarily qualified to help you because they don't know, they don't have any experience. They've never done this kind of thing. And so like, I feel like that community coming around somebody and being part of something really, valuable and aligned with interests and skills and things like that is incredibly valuable. And so I'm guessing that as the popularity of your group and the results and the word got out and people are really enjoying being part of this, that's where the growth really started happening. And has it been linear? Has it been like what's it attributed to your growth?
So I think that's probably happened in phases. If I could approach it that way. So initially it was about the simple fact that one, this was a fresh concept in the real estate investing space, right? It wasn't like we were talking before we got on here. We were kind of not that we had quote unquote invented the mastermind, but we were kind of the first specifically in the real estate investing space. And so it was new conceptually, which number one. And then, people say it's lonely at the top, but the reality of it is a lot of people at the top, and when we got a bunch of people standing at the top of the mountain, everybody still they may know each other, although they don't have relationships. But bottom line is word travels fast. And so we got to where we were creating, massive results for our members. And so I think in the initial phase of CG, that word of mouth, those massive results really began to create the initial phase of growth. And then that's changed over the last couple of years in that, like the last year, 2021 was explosive for us. Up over 35% in gross, up over 35% in net. We brought on 102 members in 12 months.
Wow.
And a lot of that was because you told me that we were going to talk a little bit about what makes us successful. And so a lot of that is we started looking at COVID made us better, right? We had to figure out if we can't get our community together physically, how do we preserve that community, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we started doing is we no longer just cater to the founder and CEO of the organization. We have subgroups and trainings for their C-level all the way down to their core employees, whether it's property management, lead managers, their COOs. Like we have sub-communities /masterminds for everybody on your team, right? And so what happened there was that created our retention rate just went through the roof in keeping our members. I think we increased 17 to 18% retention when you look at membership of a couple of hundred people and you take 18% times a couple hundred, that means you retained 30 something more members or 40-ish more members than you normally would have. That's a big deal. So penetrating the organization of our members beyond just them was a big growth factor for us. And then we also launched a new product last year where, CG, what we now call CG Premier. It's, like our typical person in that room is flipping 100 or more houses, has 100 or more units in their portfolio. And that's really who we've kind of catered to in the past. And so we had a lot of talented investors that we were just continuing to turn away, deny, et cetera. And so last year we launched what we call CG Select, which is a group of investors who they are investors, but not quite maybe to the point where they are running an investing business, right? maybe they don't have core values, mission statement, vision statement. They don't really have a team above 5 people. They don't have a culture of accountability. They don't have KPIs and metrics. They're just not at the same level as CG Premier. And then so we created CG Select, which is, typically flipping 25 to 75 homes a year to nurture them to get up to that level. And that went from 0 to, I think it's about 72 members in one calendar year. And so that's, to sum it up, at first it was word of mouth about the results that we created for people. And that was compounded in the last 12 to 18 months from the 2 things that I just shared, which are, we've gone way beyond, I think in addition to our physical meetings, we have a total right now of 12 subgroups across our organization for all of our members, employees, from the C level down to the core admin employees, right? Mm-hmm. And so those are the 2 things that just created. It was explosive last year.
So those were game changers for you guys, and it sounds like, and had a huge influence. But even before that, you guys were successful, right? Like, so you guys already had. So why do you think, especially in the mastermind industry, and I want to try to extrapolate some lessons here for typical business owners who are not in the mastermind business, but what was it about CG that allowed you guys to have such like, a long tenure, long track record? And I mean, if you're in the real estate industry, there's a really good chance people know about CG. Like, they probably heard about you. What do you think it is that made you guys successful prior to these last few changes you made?
Yeah, that's easy. They all start with C's. I can tell you that as well. So number 1 is our culture. People don't typically come for the culture, but once they get there, it's very apparent to them that, like, this is where I belong, right? And I think, what does that mean? We operate from a set of core values. When you think about what we do, we put a lot of bulls in the same pen. That can go really, really bad, right? Or really, really good. And the only way that it typically goes really, really good is that we operate, again, from a set of core values and a set of mantras, if you will, that really define what we stand for, what we stand against, how we operate. And, it's not perfect, right? But we very rarely, if we catch ourselves deviating from those things, a lot of times that means we've brought someone into the organization that shouldn't be in, and we remove them or what have you. But at the end of the day, you got to realize that if you approach the best way that we hear the word mastermind. Now the new vogue word is, peer-to-peer network. But at the end of the day, you're building a community, right? Let that sit for a second. You're building a community, and a community only functions properly and grows accordingly based upon the culture of that community, period, right? And so that, to me, is likely number 1 and 2. Understand, we've been building a community, not a mastermind or whatever, But by the way, the term mastermind has been completely bastardized in the last couple of years, right? Like, you get 10 people who've never flipped a house before in their life, and one guy that knows how to flip houses at the front of the room, and he's having a mastermind. And that is, we can, that's a whole nother conversation, but point being, you got to respect the fact that this isn't just about a mastermind. It's you're building a community, right? Because people don't come into our organization just to figure out how to flip more houses or buy more apartments or take down more self-storage units. They're doing life together. They're surfing in Mexico. They're peaking Mount Everest. They're going to Guatemala to serve at orphanages that other members are a part of, right? Like, it's more than just, hey, let me get a bunch of people and smart people in a room that'll pay me a mint and I'll be good, right? No, you got to realize that you are building a community, And if you already have a group or you're thinking about growing one, I think you should spend some time kind of sitting in what that means to you, right? What is that? How has our community thrived? And I've got, again, it's all C's, right? It's caliber. That's, to me, what makes a great mastermind, when you have a high caliber human being that is not only looking to thrive professionally, but looking to thrive personally, right? You cannot be a one-dimensional individual. We are constantly pressing our members to ask themselves, who are you as a mother? Who are you as a father? Who are you as a leader? How are you taking care of yourself physically? That doesn't mean everybody in our group is going to go compete at the next bodybuilding contest, or that they're perfect mothers and fathers. But as an organization, we are going to press on that, right? It's way bigger than business. And I can assure you, when you round out your offering to push on people, which you got to be careful with that, because if you're not excelling personally across all facets of your life, you got to be careful doing that, right? Now, that doesn't mean I'm excelling in all facets of my life, but I am working to excel at all facets of my life all the time, right? And so as a leader, if you're going to push on that, you better make sure that you're growing constantly yourself. So you got caliber there. We already talked about culture. Culture is a big deal. What you stand for, what you stand against, a set of core principles, a set of core values that will define who you are allowing into your organization, how they should function in order for, again, all the bulls in the pen to not be poking each other with big horns. But the single biggest thing that has made us successful and given us longevity is the intentionality that we put on connection. That connection, that intentionality is what creates results. It's what creates those results faster. It's what makes those results bigger. And it's what creates that buzz around collective genius is a hot spot to go if you want to get to the next level quicker, right? Because here's the reality of it. A lot of us will go to a conference, a seminar, a mastermind, and I met this guy, and I met this gal over here, and she's gonna have, and then you go home and you don't do squat. You get back into the mix, you shuffle along, and all that opportunity is kind of vanished. And so effectively left in the hands of your members, you will get subpar results. So we actually kind of take an initiative of that. Like, we're going to take that responsibility. And when we are running a mastermind and this person says, I've been buying all my deals at auction, and the auction is just, the margins are terrible. I can't get the same deal flow. I need to build a sales floor. I need to start going direct to seller. I want to get to where I have 3 acquisitions reps, et cetera, because that's a perfect example. Got a guy who was doing 150 to 170 deals a year at the auction. When that started to change, he needed to change. And so we don't just say, yeah, you need to talk to Mike over there, right? Make sure you talk to Mike. No, we physically pair them together to make sure that connection takes place and that member gets what they are after at a deep level. Like, a lot of times to the point of, hey, Mark, we're going to set up an office visit to Mike's office. He's going to let you come hang out for 2 days, right? And you guys are going to dig in the trenches because you're both members of the collective genius. And he's going to put you up under here, right? And we document that stuff at a level to where, I'm going to say, after a typical CG meeting, because, we break down into groups of about 25. Remind me to come back to that. It's a great takeaway. But we have facilitators, leaders in all of those rooms, and they are documenting when that person got up in front of the board of directors, they needed these 4 things. And I know who can help them with those 4 things, or somebody in the room is like, hey, I got you on that. Documenting that, and then actually manifesting those connections. And over the course of a meeting, this doesn't include whatever's happening like in between meetings. but probably over the course of the meeting, inside of the week after, there's probably 450 connections physically made between two human beings that can help each other. It's a heavy lift, but man, oh man, it's like rocket fuel for results and growth for them, as well as results and growth for us as an organization.
Well, dude, that's genius, because what I heard is like, you're not leaving it to chance that these people are going to connect in the hallway after or over a drink. Like, you're like, hey, we know this person has this experience or this solution to the issue that you're struggling with. We're going to connect you, and you actively take a role in involvement in that. And that makes it, the facilitation, it makes it easier for them to connect. It makes it easier for you guys to retain people and perform a service that's valuable to them. Like, that's really, really cool.
There's weight to it, right? Like when one of our leadership team makes that connection, there's weight to it, right? Versus like, hey, I want to make sure you're in the same room. Like, Tom, you can help Mike. Okay, cool. Make sure you guys hook up. A lot of times it just doesn't happen. And right. So there's weight when someone from your leadership team puts you together. And so the way that I sum it up, and again, we talk about certain taglines or mantras, we are in ruthless, relentless pursuit of relationships that create results. Right. That's our internal talk track, right? That's not member driven, that's internal. Our member, our leadership team is ruthlessly and relentlessly in pursuit of creating relationships that create results.
You got some good alliteration going on there, man. That's pretty slick.
That's the level of intention that you have to put in your organization for your members and your leadership team in order to right? I mean, that's the level of intentionality that if you're going to build a world-class organization, that you have to have around what you do. Kind of goes back to that's our part of our culture, right? Part of our team culture is that's what we do, right? And a lot of times when you're fumbling along through growth and you're trying to figure out what's next, and sometimes you just come back to those anchors. We can do this, but does that put us in ruthless, relentless pursuit of relationships that create, right? Like those guiding lights, those principles in which you operate are the anchors for how you navigate, what you do. You know?
It's that vision that you keep going towards to keep you moving towards that vision, right?
Yes.
So listen, I got a question for you, Jason, because over the years, I mean, it's been, you said, I think 12 years that you've been in Collective Genius, you probably have a lot of people that came through it and are in it, and you've experienced with a lot of people. I'm curious because I think every single Collective Genius member that comes in there gets a lot of lessons or takeaways or whatever that they get for their own business, their own life, or whatever the case may be. I'm curious, you being the leader kind of, of that community, what's the lessons or takeaways that you've gotten out of the Collective Genius, out of all those people that are coming in there?
A lot of the lessons are the things that we're talking about. Okay. I'm sharing with you guys kind of 12 years of what I've learned to end up with a great group of human beings working together to help one another. And so a lot of the things that I'm sharing are lessons I've learned over the course of those 12 years that have really been a blessing to me as well. I can tell you another lesson that I've learned too is you mentioned the word, I think inside of about 30 seconds of when we got on the call, focus. I've been doing this for 12 years. I have worked with a lot of high-powered, highly talented, highly driven human beings. And when I see them fall down, it typically isn't from a lack of energy, a lack of drive, a lack of education, a lack of grit, a lack of desire, a lack of intelligence. It's typically a lack of focus, right? And a lot of times when you're a visionary, it is difficult to stay focused because you feel like, and you may very well be good at a lot of things, right? Like I feel pretty confident that given enough time and enough information, I could be good at a lot of things, right? But that's dangerous, right? Unbridled vision is equally as trying to think of how I want to say this. Unbridled vision is, I think vision is often spoken about in the entrepreneurial environment as this blessing, this gift, this, you're special if you have it. And there's a lot of merit to that. But I don't think vision gets put into this box. I think unbridled vision, doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't have focus. It doesn't have parameters. It doesn't have clarity. Is actually dangerous. It's bad. And that, because that unbridled vision translates to a lack of focus, and a lack of focus is, I guarantee, the single common denominator for why I see highly talented, highly driven, great human beings fall down and fail, or not have longevity, right? Anybody can get in the way of a strong market. Anybody can get in the way of a strong market. Short-term success, I would say, isn't overly difficult. Long-term success is a whole nother ball game. Right. And so the lack of focus is what typically derails a lot of entrepreneurs. And so for me, I've watched from the outside looking in and continue. When you run a mastermind, the amount of opportunity that's put in front of you can be, it's a blessing, but it can also be overwhelming. And the ability to stay focused and not go in 100 different directions, that's been one of my big learning, a huge takeaway. Yeah. I've also learned that making money is a skill set, but keeping it is a discipline. Making money is a skill set, but keeping it is a discipline. A lot of people can make it, not a lot of people keep it long term. That's another big thing that I've seen over the course of the years and have learned. A lot of entrepreneurs fail from a lack of cash management. The systematic approach to lead generation or disposition or rehabbing or whatever the systematic approaches you take into your business, at some point you reach a level of scale to where the same level of systematic approach must be applied to the financial side of your business, right? Everybody thinks that scaling is just, well, I'm gonna do more deals, right? I'm gonna do more deals. Well, doing more deals creates a lopsided, creates other problems. And so scaling has to happen in unison, in rhythm, if you will, with all the facets of your business. You can't go from doing 100 deals to doing 200 deals and think that you're going to have the same CPA or the same financial structure or the same methodologies in how you manage cash, or right. Like, so that's another big takeaway, is that making money is a skill. Making money is a skill set. Keeping money is a discipline. The level of intentionality that you have to have to create long-term success and long-term wealth is very different than just getting in the way of a good market, right? I think we'll see a lot of that when the market shifts in the next whenever. If I had a crystal ball, I'd probably be doing this interview from my yacht, right? But
yes, you don't know that it's coming like in March or April or like in July. You don't know that?
Well, here's the beautiful part about it. We take an overall kind of holistic approach at CG. It's not just about doing more deals or hiring people. It's an overall encompassing look at your financial structure, where we're saying, maybe once you get to a certain spot, you should begin operating as if it's going to happen at any given time. Right. And so we're big fans of what's called profit first. Yep. We've had Michael Michalowicz come to and speak at our organization several times. That systematic structure has changed my life. Right. And it's not, again, it's discipline. It's not rocket science. I have 5 accounts. I have cash flow account for CG, retained earnings, cash flow account for CG, cash flow account for CG Select, retained earnings for both organizations, a tax account, a rainy day account. And and then when you begin to where you're making enough money, just each month and then what happens is where things get powerful is you look up at some point and you say, okay, for me to continue to put money in the rainy day account for my family, or for me to continue to put money in retained earnings for my business in case there are hiccups, would be irresponsible, because there's enough in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take those contributions you've been putting in there to build that level of security for the future. And then one day you hit those thresholds, and then all that money you've been putting on those accounts is now 100% go into investable cash flow, right? So say you're putting, 30 grand a month in your rainy day account, and you're putting 100 grand a month in your retained earnings account. And you wake up one day and you're like, man, I've got $500,000 cash to take care of my family. I've got $1.5 million sitting in retained earnings. Like at some point, if I keep doing that, it's going to be irresponsible. Then you take the 30 you were putting over here and the 100 you were putting over here, and the couple of years you've been doing it, and you say, I'm done. But now I've got 130. I got 130 to begin buying cash flowing assets to start replacing my income. And so we take a very holistic approach. We want to prepare our members for a downturn regardless, because you don't know when it's coming. We literally show at every opening at Collective Genius, we show a few years, I don't remember the name of the hurricane. There was a decimating hurricane in the panhandle of Florida. And they show, there's this big aerial picture and complete devastation down to dirt. But there's one house. There's one house that stood. And it wasn't luck. That house was built prior to the storm the right way, right? That house was built prior to the storm the right way. And so we put an emphasis on, when we get together with our members, build your house the right way. So no matter what happens, you're going to be fine. Your family's going to be fine. You've got, I don't think anybody would like a downturn. I wouldn't like a downturn, but because of the structure we're talking about, I wouldn't be like,
yeah.
Right. Because we've followed that, followed that process. And that's what I'm talking about. We talk about making it a skill set, keeping it a discipline. That's what we just call that's discipline.
Right. And so tell me why do you think that there's such a disparity between making it and keeping it? Do you think it's just that like most people don't have discipline, or they don't focus on it, or it's not as fun, or it's just like, it feels like self-deprivation? Like why is there, cause I've seen the same thing too. Like, yeah, great. You make a lot of money, but where is it? Like what happened?
I think it's probably a little bit of all the things you just said, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that is probably largely responsible for it is the habits. Like when you first start building a business, it's acquisition, right? You gotta sell stuff or buy stuff, or and you can get so habitually ingrained in that mindset because it takes so many years to get to a spot where you're putting 30 grand over for your family and 100 grand for your business and whatever those numbers are. It takes so long to get there. By the time you realize you're there, you don't realize you're there, right? You're just on the hump every day. You don't realize you've created momentum, and all right? Different than the hamster in the wheel, because you've been the hamster in the wheel to get to that spot for years. And that's just the way you think.
Yeah.
Right. You don't realize like, whoa, wait a minute. I set out to build a business to create a life that I can enjoy. But the reality of it is some of the habits that I had to embrace to do that are the very same habits I almost have to break in order to actually enjoy my life. And implement processes to do so.
And dude, as you're talking, that's the one thing I'm wondering is like at that level of success in business and at that level of scale where people are flipping a large amount of properties, it seems very easy to get stuck on that wheel and sacrifice some of the other parts of your life just because you've been so used to needing to do that to get your business to the point you want it to, like, and you have to kind of self adjust or course correct at some point, or maybe there's a way to do it while you're building as well. Is that something you've seen people struggle with? And
it's a massive struggle. Again, I'm going to say it and then we'll dissect it again. The very habits you have to create in order to build a life, the very habits you have to create in order to build a business that will give you a life of enjoyment are the very same habits that have to be undone in order for you to enjoy that life. Right. And initially, when you get going, it takes so much effort, so much momentum, so much energy to get to a point where you can even go, right? That when you get there, you don't realize it. Right. And so there's those, you could break that, you could find that line of demarcation. And on one side, you've got what, and on the other side, you've got who. Right. That initial push, that's the what's got to be done to get there. What's got to be done to get there. And then that line of demarcation on the other side, it's who's going to do it moving forward besides me. And that sounds so simple. But again, you get so ingrained with just doing for an extended period of time that you don't embrace the fact that once your business gets to a certain point, it ain't about the what anymore. It's all about the who. There comes a point, I would say in a $3 to $5 million range where you start to shift over to like one of your core responsibilities. And this is something I struggle with as well. So I'm not over here banging a soapbox, my friends. But a lot of your focus has to be spent on finding talent. And a lot of us don't like doing that.
Right.
All right.
Especially entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I don't want to interview a bunch of people and create a funnel for an actual legitimate process to find talent. Like that sounds terrible. And I think it is. I got a great team. I'm very fortunate. But that's one of our biggest challenges right now. We're looking for a COO, and it's like, I just despise the process.
Yeah. Pains of growth, right? It's pains of success.
It is. But again, if you want to make that shift, it has to be intentional, right? You have to think, I'm going to begin moving away from the business so I can focus on the vision and other people can execute. It has to be an intentional choice. I watch people say it all the time where, I'm looking to get to where like you're already there.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize it. Right.
Yep.
You get a guy, I won't use his name. He's a great guy. Let me preface this guy's probably worth, I would estimate $15 million, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units in his rental portfolio. The conversation goes like this: Jason, I'm frustrated, man. I don't even know. This ain't even worth it anymore, right? This ain't worth it anymore. I did all this work, all this struggle. I made like 400 grand last year. I'm really thinking about just pulling the plug on this. As we got to talking, I was like, how many units did you add to your portfolio last year? He said, about 60. And I said, okay, well, what's a typical rip right now if you had sold those wholesale or rehabbed some of them, put them on the market? What's an average 20 grand? Okay, so 20 times 60 is 1.2 million. You made $1.6 million. You chose to push $1.2 million of that income over to your balance sheet in the form of building your portfolio because you kept those homes. So are you so discouraged you only made 400 grand? Or can I show you like you actually made 1.6 million, but you chose to keep those assets in your portfolio, right? So if you are buying almost 5 homes a month and adding those to your portfolio, but you're unhappy because you're doing too much of the work, what if you just bought 4 instead of 5 for the next 6 months? And there's your salary for a rock star COO to alleviate some of the pain and anguish that you are suffering from. Right? So much of it to success is mentality. And when I share these stories, again, that doesn't, I'm not trying to bang the soapbox. I still carry some scars. I have been incredibly blessed. I'm not Warren Buffett by any means, but have long exceeded the place of being concerned about finances. And the reality of it is, when I go to hire a $200,000 employee like this COO we're looking for, that's still something that I'm like, oh wait a minute, now that's $17,000 a month. Wait. So I share some of these stories from the vein of hopefully helping your listeners begin to process the conversation in their head and validate what is real and what isn't, versus like, oh, I've got it all. I'm the shaman over here. You know, it's not like that. I'm very good after 12 years of helping people unwind that conversation, but I have it too.
Yeah.
So you got to surround yourself around people that are constantly making you question that conversation. Is that conversation real? I can tell you the conversation that I just shared with you, there was just such a level of relief.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wow, that's not that hard. I can sell one of those 5 homes a month I was keeping in my portfolio and go get me a rock star. Oh.
Right.
But been in anguish for how long? Because the story was, this isn't worth it. I'm only making $400,000. No, you're making 1.6 million just putting on your balance sheet, right? So
right.
Anyway, I'm
awesome,
rambling,
man.
I think. Am I rambling?
Dude,
I don't know.
No, man, like it's so relevant. And I think it's refreshing for people to hear that everybody, regardless of what level you're at, still has internal dialogue, struggles, things that are still need to be adjusted and tweaked and improved and modified. We're out of time here, but I want to ask, how do people learn more about what you're doing?
Well, it's pretty simple. It's learn more about CG.com. Learn more about CG.com.
Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure and a privilege.
Dude, I really like Jason and I love what he's created, you know, and there's a lot of lessons in here. The first one, and I'm just going to kind of go in sequential order of the episode. Like, I think it's really cool how he basically saw an opportunity for something. He already had developed some skills. He already had some people and some resources in his corner, and he just did something and ran with it. And this is where, like, a lot of people I think struggle, man, with like, the question is like, what should I do? What should I do? Well, look at what you're already doing. Look at the people around you. Look at your resources. Look at what you're good at. Look what you like, and just start there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so this isn't, for instance, you know, you're not just going to be able to go out and create another mastermind if that's not your skill set, that's not your desire, and it's not fun for you. So he kind of just started this thing without even a plan. Which, by the way, I'm seeing more and more and more. The more interviews we do, the more people I'm seeing that kind of just went with something to start, and then it developed into something.
Yeah, but I think what happens for people is there is that internal burning. There's something that like a little spark that happens for them. And I think that was happening for him as well, because as she mentioned, he first started with his boutique, right? And then he was, when it comes to lending money. And then, you know, the different things in the market started shifting, and he's looking at, okay, I need to create a community, something along those lines. And so there was this spark.
Well,
and you know,
I don't know if I'd call it a spark, man. I think of it. He was aware. He looked around, saw things happening. He didn't bury his head in the sand, and then he realized he had to do something. Like, maybe is it a spark? All right, I guess we could. I think of a spark.
I'm going with a spark. No, right. I mean, I get what you're saying, man. Yeah.
But yeah, and he did something, and it developed into something. And so, what I sense is a large degree of awareness. Mm-hmm. Because not only internally with himself to see what he likes, what he's good at, what his skills are. He mentioned connection, right? Being a connector.
Right.
But also, like in this case, when he started, the market shifting, right? And so having that awareness of what's going on externally is important too.
Right. And I think it's one of those things that, like, for instance, he said, my skill set, my go-to thing is being able to see how to connect the two people together, kind of a thing, right? If you look from that perspective and you start thinking for yourself, what's my thing? And then extrapolate it. How can I benefit the society using that particular skill set or that way of looking? Then you can start seeing, okay, maybe this is something that I would be really good at to be able to put out there. And if you notice, you know, that's one thing that he just focused on. And one of the things that we talked about, focus, right? That long-term focus that is needed to be able to sustain that success and moving forward and make things happen. And when you start looking at that and bringing that community and having that community help you stay focused, that's when things happen.
Let's dive into that, man, because you mentioned that in the intro, and the community. Jason mentioned his C's, right? And the ones in particular, he talked about community, he talked about culture, he talked about caliber, and all of these have to do with basically the same thing: is making sure you're pulling together people of a like mind that have a similar desire. That doesn't mean the same vision, right? Because everybody's vision can be different, but that's kind of like what we do in Life and Air, where, we're getting a bunch of people together that want a better life, better business, and they enjoy helping each other and seeing other people succeed. And so being around that is, and Jason said this like beautifully, like how important this is. Like, this is really I think it's like the magic sauce. It's a secret sauce. It's a magic ingredient to really being successful.
Yeah, because it gets you empowered, right? It pulls you. It's like, you want to grow. You want to be around those people if they're similar kind of a culture as they are, right? You want to belong to that community. Human beings, for the most part, we want to belong to something, right? Yeah. I don't believe that we are meant to be loners, right? I believe that we are meant to be part of some kind of a collective being. If you think about human beings, right? And when you start looking from that perspective, getting out there and finding that community for you that is got a similar culture as you are, all of a sudden you start feeling good about your life. You start feeling good about what you're up to and where you want to go to and how you want to achieve these goals. And they're going to pull you and they're going to encourage you. And now
there's accountability, like all these things.
There's accountability, all those kinds of things. And all of a sudden you connect with different people who are maybe in that one area, one level up from you, right? Or 2 levels or 5 levels.
One standard deviation.
Right. And all of a sudden things start to move in the right direction towards your own vision in life.
Yeah. I love the concept of mastermind and the community. And I think it's just super, super, super valuable. And Jason's formed a really successful one in real estate. Yeah, go ahead.
I will tell you this, looking back to my own life, way back in the day, in the early 2000s and all those kinds of things, the missing element for me in my growth and my ability to grow in my life was a mastermind.
Yeah.
That's one of the, having the coach or a mentor, but the mastermind aspect is what the biggest missing. So for anybody who's listening on this podcast, I would highly encourage you to go look for a mastermind, whatever it might be, whether it's Life Owner, Collective Genius, whatever it might be. Look for that mastermind that's got a similar culture that you want to live, into, and plug yourself in, however you got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to help you accelerate your vision, your life, and every aspect of your life, hopefully.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is an awesome episode, man. The other thing I thought was really valuable here was he said that the habits that are involved in creating a successful business are the same ones that can eventually basically lead to your downfall in every other part of your life because you're so used to focusing on business. And this is where, we didn't have a lot of time to get into it. I think you can form your business if you have the right mindset from the beginning and the right structures and systems. I don't think anybody would argue that business is hard, right? Business is a challenge. There's a lot of businesses that don't make it, but I think there's a tremendous amount of things you can do on the front end that will dramatically help you transition those habits. And by that, I mean having a vision, because if you have a vision, in my mind, the process works like this. As you have a vision and you know what your life is going to look like, now you know exactly how big, how scaled, how profitable that business needs to be, how many employees you need to have, and you can design it very intentionally from that perspective, which I think is really, really valuable. And especially in Jason's group, where he has such large businesses, I could see how that could be a challenge.
Yep. And if you notice, whatever part of life your walk is and wherever your level you are at, we all have the different struggles or different challenges or whatever the case may be. So that should hopefully, for you listener, whatever you are in your life right now, know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You can make this encouraging, happen,
Yes.
Yeah. It's very encouraging.
Absolutely. Hey, well, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed the interview. We would appreciate it if you would like this, share it, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to see you as a regular listener, and our goal is to contribute everything you need to be successful in life and business. So until then, we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.